humility is being able to admit you're wrong, which is very important in the nursing field, because although you have had all this training and you've gone to school for this, you are wrong sometimes. Even doctors are wrong. And when this happens, you have to be able to admit it to yourself as well as the people working in the hospital, because it can have serious consequences for your patient and your career. Because say you're giving somebody a prescription and you write it down wrong, that means that they are getting a medicine that they don't need and could possibly react differently to other medications that they're on.
Intellectual courage, being able to see that other people have different points of view and to be able to explore their point of view. An example of that would be taking someone off life support, and how it's hard to tell someone, like the family, for example, that that family member needs to be taken off life support, and that they should and they need to donate the organs.
Intellectual integrity is important in the medical field as it pertains to nursing, because even though you've had all the training in the medical field, you can still be wrong, and it's important to realize that you can still be wrong. An example of this would be if you have a patient in the ER who's experiencing stomach pains similar to those of another patient. Even though you think you know what the diagnosis is, it's important to run those tests to make sure you know what it is. It's important as a nurse to be able to express intellectual empathy with your patients. By expressing intellectual empathy, you're able to see their point of view. It's especially important when you're dealing with younger kids or those kids' parents. A lot of times kids, they'll run out of a lot of equipment and needles that can be really scary for them. And it's important to be able to express empathy in order to see it from their point of view and to be able to comfort them the way you would want to be comforted. It's also important to do the same thing with their parents. Their parents whose child is in the hospital be going through a rough time, so it's important to try and see it from their point of view in order to comfort them the same way you would want to be comforted if your child was in the hospital.
Intellectual perseverance is taking on hard intellectual challenges and completing them. Those are very popular in nursing. For example, somebody walks into the ER and you don't know what's wrong with them. They are just getting sicker and sicker by the moment and you cannot figure it out. But being a nurse, you are going to dedicate all that you have to keep on trying to figure out what's wrong with them, because you just have that drive to save somebody.
Faith and reason, having the confidence in someone to know that they'll do what you say. An example would be when a patient has diabetes and you give them a strict diet to follow, and you tell them the foods they cannot and cannot eat, and the consequences of if they don't follow the diet. And when you give the patient this strict diet, you expect them and you have confidence in them that they will listen and follow what you tell them to do.
Intellectual fair-mindedness in the medical field is taking all ideas into consideration. An example of this would be if you're trying to diagnose a patient who has an unknown disease. Not only are you going to take your own personal experiences and your training as a nurse into consideration, but you're also going to think about the symptoms, the unique symptoms, and you're also going to think about the doctor's perspective. You're going to take that all into consideration when trying to diagnose and treat this patient.
Intellectual autonomy. You will come across all kinds of people in the nursing field, and you're your own thinker, and you won't need a second opinion as long as you know what you're talking about. Like, for example, like you want get advice from a patient to put an IV in, because you know what you're talking about. You're your own thinker.